Hello, everyone. My name is Noah Newman. I'm a fourth year medical student at Wake Forest School of Medicine, and welcome to tonight's town hall. So, medical school application season is a very exciting time for applicants. It can also be anxiety provoking and challenging. Too often, applicants are receiving misinformation from sources they shouldn't always trust. The application process is already very long and challenging enough as is. So, we feel it's important to help applicants in this journey by providing them with reliable information from people who help make the admissions decisions. So, we're going to transition to our Q&A in just a little bit. But first, before we begin, I want to bring on Tamiwa. He's a current medical student at Morehouse School of Medicine. And I want him to share a little bit about the work that he's helped out at YPI. So Tamiwa, I'm going to add you on.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tomiwa Oderinde. I am a first-year medical student. I'm finishing up my first year of medical school at Morehouse School of Medicine. And myself and a colleague, her name was Daniela Sanchez from UAB, another rising M2. We came together on a project, and we basically developed a page on the YPI website that outlines the whole journey from first admissions into undergrad to what it would take to be accepted into medical school. And we go over things like registration, extracurriculars, setting up your MCAT prep, and all the way up to applications and interviews. So basically, it's a page with all of these sections, and each step is just like a checklist that you could mark off as you go throughout your year. We set up timelines, example timelines that you could follow to a T if you'd like. And it's all just to help make the process easier for those who are confused or lost in the excitement that comes with trying to apply to medical school. We're hoping that this would make it an easy experience and help guide you through it. So in addition to all of the information that I just discussed, each one of the points has links that link directly to the AAMC website. So if there's a topic that we're talking about, it links directly to the page on the AAMC website that talks more about it. So it's not like we're just giving you our own anecdotal evidence. We're providing you with the direct resource as well, just to help you navigate the whole website. And we're hoping that it's all comprehensive and all easy to follow. And if you look in the website, there is at the bottom of each section a link that goes to testimonials from previous medical students who just wanted to share how they went through each step, advice that they have. So it's all like real world knowledge. For example, for MCAT prep, I personally think that it is a great idea to tutor the different sections or any section that you can, because being a tutor and working as a tutor helps to prepare you, and you don't have to think too hard about what your study schedule will be because you're continuously going over that material. And it's just things, practical things that would help make your transition into medical school easier. And so that's what we worked on. We hope that it was helpful, hope it's appealing. We put a lot of work into it, and we just want you guys to succeed.
Yeah, and we'll be sharing that link somewhere in the comments section. So thank you so much for putting that all together.
Of course.
Really appreciate it. Okay. So now we're going to move on to our panel of medical school admissions faculty who will be answering yours and our questions in a live Q&A format. Abdallah will be selecting the audience questions from tonight. So I wanted to bring on Abdallah real quick just to talk about the best way to kind of structure your questions.
Hello, everybody. You've seen me before, and I'm back again. So I want to thank everybody for being here today. Thank you for tuning in. This is going to be your opportunity to ask medical admission officers any question you want. But here's the trick. You got to ask the questions in a simple and concise way. That way we're able to, fit that into our program while giving you the the program that we've set for you. So just keep your questions short and simple, 1 or 2 sentences max. And hopefully if they fit with our theme for today, we'll select them. And yeah, happy questioning.
Okay, thank you so much for that. And so now we'll go ahead and introduce our panelists. Tonight, we have 3 fantastic deans of admission. First up, we have Ms. Sharp Keller. She's the Director of Admissions and Financial Aid at the University of Chicago at the Fitzer School of Medicine. We also have Dr. Rahangale, the Associate Dean of Admission at the UNC Chapel Hill School of Medicine. And then last up, we also have Ms. Birdsong, the Associate Director of Admissions at Kansas City University College of Osteopathic Medicine. So thank you, all 3 of y'all, for being on tonight.
Be here.
So we'll kind of start by going through some questions that we had prepared. And so for the first question, we want to know, how is this application cycle prepared to be different or similar to last year's? Obviously, a lot went on with COVID and things are starting to look a little bit different. But we were curious if you guys were making any initial guesses with your crystal balls, like interviews, for example, in person, virtual. And we'll kind of start, I guess, in screen order. So Ms. Sharp Keller, since you're at the top, we'll have you start first.
Sure, absolutely. So I think this is a great question and what is first and foremost on so many applicants' minds. This year, I think will look largely similar to last cycle, but since you're all pre-meds, you probably don't know that much about what last cycle looked like. So what that's going to be for us at the University of Chicago, and what we've heard from many peer schools as well, is that we will be continuing virtual interviews for the entire year this year. Even if we get to a better place with the pandemic, and even if things get a little bit safer, our eye is towards equity for the whole cycle, and also on making sure that the cycle is not inordinately expensive as it has been in prior years. And so we're going to do Zoom video interviews pretty similar to this conversation that we're having really throughout the whole year. Now, our hope is that we will be able to have in-person second look activities in spring 2022, which would be the big difference between this cycle and last cycle. Our incoming students this year have never been to campus before. And so they are going to, many of them come to Chicago sight unseen. We're hoping that won't be the case for this upcoming year. And so we're planning on sticking with virtual interviews. And then hopefully if you get an acceptance, you can come and see the campus in person in the spring. And so that's really what this year will look like logistically. And of course, happy to go into further details about what that looks like if there are other questions.
Okay, that's awesome. So you guys are kind of doing a hybrid model this year with the interview portion virtually and then the kind of second look portion in person.
Exactly.
Okay, well, Miss Birdsong, how about at your institution?
Yes. Well, hi to everybody. Glad you guys could make it. We are, as of right now, looking to do more of a hybrid model completely this next year. So being able to offer some in-person interviews but also give the option for virtual interviews for those that may still be uncomfortable with traveling, or even, as finances are dwindling and this is an expensive process, can certainly do that online option, virtual option as well. There's no difference between those two. Nobody has a greater advantage. We've worked very closely with our admissions committee this year, and they are in agreement that no one will have a huge advantage. We'll also do some visit days, so those that were interviewing virtually and do want to still come visit campus, they can certainly do that. But we're kind of itching and ready to get back on campus and ready to see some students, prospective students, walk through campus. So we're looking forward to the year, and hope we can see some of you there.
Man, it seems like there's a lot of enthusiasm for getting students back up to schools. Dr. Rahangale, how about at UNC Chapel Hill?
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. And we are, I think, basically what was described at University of Chicago, planning similarly to have virtual interviews throughout the season so that everyone has the same experience, but then hopefully be able to do a second look in person, or if people want to, individually come to campus, they have the opportunity to take a look at our school. We might change what's actually happening on the interview day because we have got a better, last year when we were getting everything ready, it was sort of just like everybody who adjusted to everything last year. We put our interview day together, and now we're able to fine tune it and use the technology a little bit better. So it won't be the exact same interview day as last year, but similar.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And then I will say, I'm a little biased being from the South, but people should enjoy that warm southeastern weather if they come to visit North Carolina. I'm just right around the corner at Winston-Salem, so. So the next question I have is one that was posted from Facebook. And this was a question that says, let's say a student receives an acceptance, but they feel the school may not be the best fit for them. If they decline, will that hurt their chances of other medical schools if they end up reapplying? So I guess we can start in a different order this time. Miss Birdsong, would you like to start?
I will do my best. I think the simplest answer, and I can probably speak for a lot of colleagues, is no. I think that med school is a tough decision and something that is not to be taken lightly. This is a 4 years of your life, and you have to feel comfortable going somewhere. So if you do get an acceptance and really feel like it's not a good fit for you, then you should try again. But this is the one thing I like to tell students is this is your future. This is your what you are going to do, and you have to feel comfortable with where you're going and the time and effort that you're going to put into it.
Yeah, absolutely. I echo that. Do Ms. Sharp-Keller and Ms. Rahundale, do you guys have anything to add to that?
I might just, I agree that it's a big decision and that you need to make sure that you're comfortable where you're going, but you have to also remember what is your ultimate long-term goal. And if your goal is to become a physician, we have excellent medical schools throughout the country. And maybe it isn't the one that you had pictured yourself going to, but all of the medical schools are accredited and kept to certain standards, and you will, at the end of the day, be a physician. And so I agree that there's no blacklist or anything like that, but I would think really hard before declining an acceptance because they're very competitive acceptances. And so just maybe try to think about what's your long-term goal when you're having that difficult decision.
Yeah, absolutely. Just getting the admissions offer itself is such a coveted thing. I mean, I would hate for anyone to turn it down and then maybe they're not blacklisted per se, but something happens and it doesn't work out the next year. Yeah, anything else to add to that? I think that's a pretty straightforward question. Okay. So the next question I'm also pretty excited about because this one we always have different schools, public and private, that come on. And so this one has to do with public and private institutions. The question is that, are there certain types of applicants that public or private schools tend to look for? Is there a certain demographic or certain type of prospective doctor that your schools recruit more heavily? Maybe it's private versus public, maybe it's just for some other reason. But I'm interested to hear. And Ms. Sharp-Keller, I guess we can start with you this time.
Sure, absolutely. So we are at the University of Chicago, a private medical school, and I think this has a couple of implications for us. So one, as a private medical school, we do not have any preference for the state of residence of our applicants. There are no restrictions on us by the state of how many Illinois residents we have to have. And really in an entering class in any given year, only about 15% of our students will come from Illinois. And that's part of the reason that I do talks like this or go out on the recruitment trail, is to tell everybody about the University of Chicago and make sure they know that there's not an advantage for in-state applicants and there's not a certain percentage of our seats that are reserved for those students. I'm also the director of financial aid, and I think that is important as well. As a private medical school, there is no difference in or out of state tuition for our students. And there is no difference in scholarships that students are eligible for to help bring that cost down. And the final note that I'll make about just the cost of attendance is we know that there are many amazing and more affordable state medical schools that you may be looking at. I talk every year with applicants from the state of Texas or maybe even California that have these amazing medical schools in their own backyard that have lower tuition for in-state residents. And that's part of why we have a really generous scholarship program, so that students are able to actually seriously consider coming to U Chicago versus maybe a more affordable option in their home state. We'll talk a little bit about our own programs a little bit later, and then we can kind of dig into our mission and what we're looking for specifically. But I would say in terms of the selection process, state of residence has no bearing on our process, and we look for the best applicants aligned with our mission, really from wherever they come from.
Wow, so only 15% actually come from the state of Illinois. No kidding.
Wow, absolutely.
Okay. How about at your institutions? Ms. Rahandale, in North Carolina, is there, I guess, almost like a state bias, or do you guys tend to recruit more like primary care-driven physicians?
So we also are mission driven. And so by being a state school, we are committed to serving North Carolinians and beyond, though, because we are a school of that nationally recruits. That being said, about 18 to 20% of our class is out of state. So most of our class is in state, and but we have a strong presence of out of state students. And that does mean that the out-of-state pool is very competitive, and so that's just something to take into account. I mean, in general, we have another state school in our state, East Carolina University, and that's a public school as well, but they only take applications from in-state students. So each public school is going to be slightly different as to where they take candidates from. But as she was saying, it's mission-driven. And our mission is broad, and I can talk about our school when we get to that point in the evening. But and so we do look for out-of-state students to be a part of our pool.
Yeah, that's actually a really high percentage of out-of-state students, much higher than I was expecting. That's great that you have that state diversity at your school. And then Ms. Birdsong, how about at your institution?
Yeah, we are a private institution. We do have two campuses, one in Kansas City, one in Joplin, Missouri. But we are private, so state of residence has no bearing. And just like everybody else has said thus far, it really the perfect student, or the student that we're looking for, really is a little bit more based on our mission, and students that are going to fit well into our campus and into what we're driving students to go into.
Yeah, that makes sense as well. So I think it's really great to see that there's so many different schools geographically across the United States, and then that there's so much diversity as well within geographically where those schools are taking from. So I'm going to go ahead and select the next question. And so this one's going to be about school programs. So we kind of touched on this a little bit in the last question, but is there anything that's particular about your school that you were interested in highlighting to the audience? I think every medical school that I've heard of, has some sort of mission or has some sort of neat program. So just, is there anything that makes your school unique that you'd like to share? And so we can start kind of reverse order this time with Miss Birdsong.
I can definitely do that. So I think there's a couple of small things that I'd want to highlight. One, our curriculum is ever changing, which is sometimes annoying to medical students, but at the same time, I feel like we do a fantastic job of really trying to get the information that students need. 2 years is a very short amount of time to get what you need to know in order to go out on your rotations. And we do a systems-based curriculum and actually do a 2-pass. So they do normal first year and then more problem solving on that second year. And then one of our very special programs that is highly unique, that does not apply to everybody, but I think is a fantastic program, is our military medicine track. So anybody that is on an HPSP scholarship actually gets put into an honors track and specifically trained for what type of physician and what types of things you're going to see being a military physician, doing some extra training, especially during the summer, and some special classes and things with some of our faculty who are former military, and is a neat little thing that not a lot of schools have.
That is a neat thing. I haven't heard of that, but I think that's fantastic. I think also some important things you talked about was the way that the curriculums run. And that's something I certainly didn't know before medical school of what those words meant. And so I highly encourage applicants to talk to students who are at that school, or if they know anyone who's in medical school, to learn more about the way curriculums out there are structured. I think that's pretty helpful. Dr. Rahangale, how about at UNC?
Sure. Well, at UNC, our goal is to serve the state of North Carolina and beyond through excellence in research, education, and patient care. And so that means that we have a bimodal mission where we want to produce physicians who will become excellent primary care physicians. We've been ranked #1 in the country for primary care physician training for the past several years, and maintain that excellence. At the same time, we also are a major research university and have a robust MD PhD program, are ranked in the top 10 in the country in terms of public schools from NIH funding, with over $1 billion of funding in research. And so that attracts a very interesting, diverse group of individuals who come into our school. And I think that there's a lot that one can learn by mixing that group up and pushing each other. We also have the Gilling School of Public Health, which is ranked either, in the top 3, sometimes 1, sometimes 2, sometimes 3 schools of public health, which is right across the street from our medical school. So individuals interested in public health and policy are attracted to our school as well. So we sort of like to offer it all.
Yeah, so something that's really cool also about research at UNC, I remember sitting in one of my rotations and we pulled up this treatment algorithm. And it was like a UNC Chapel Hill developed algorithm for treatment. And I thought this is so cool that people can see their school's name or their program's name providing this great research that's being implemented in everyday care. So I think if research is your thing, really take a look at what schools are doing research and have good programs, because there's really great ways you can make a difference. And UNC is certainly a great name in that field. How about Ms. Sharp-Keller at UChicago? Anything that really drives y'all or makes y'all unique?
Yeah, absolutely. There are just a couple of things that I'll touch on that I think are a great primer as to kind of who we are, but also what we're looking for in the admissions process. And it's great that so many of you are here to learn a little bit about that, because you should be thinking about crafting your school list to find the place that aligns with your personal mission in medicine. So there are a couple of things about UChicago that make it the place that I will spend my career in admissions, and why I think I work with the best medical students anywhere. I would say the first is who we are. So we are a tiny medical medical school. We have 90 students per class, which means that I know literally every single person coming into the medical school this year, even though the whole process was remote this past year. On top of that, even though we are this tiny student body where the students are tight-knit and the faculty know all of the students, we also have one of the most diverse student bodies of any of the top medical schools. So for example, this year's entering class is 36% from backgrounds underrepresented in medicine. And that's why groups like the Young Physicians Initiative are so amazing. Because we want to change the face of medicine, and we want our student body and ultimately our faculty and our physician workforce to look like the patients that we serve. And that kind of leads into the next point, which is where we are. So we are a medical school in the great city of Chicago. I hope many of you have had a chance to see it in person, but we are specifically located on the south side of Chicago, which is home to some of the lowest income communities in the entire city and really any city across the nation. And that makes up our primary patient population. So no matter what you're rotating in, whether you're in orthopedic surgery or whether you're doing something like family medicine and primary care, you are seeing patients with great need who have been marginalized and often discriminated against in every single aspect of their lives, even outside of the clinic. And that has to be your primary motivator for the patients that you want to serve and that you're looking forward to taking care of in medical school. And so I think that location and the patient population that we serve, this diverse urban underserved patient population, is one of just the biggest highlights of the medical school. And then finally, I'll just talk a little bit about our structure and kind of what we are, which is an academic research center. We talked a little bit already about the research opportunities with the other schools here this evening. And all of our students do mentored research. We will literally help you find a mentor. Our faculty go to work on your behalf the minute you step on campus to help you figure out who is going to help you come up with a project that you are going to love. And that could be in anything from the basic sciences and clinical research, which you're probably familiar with, all the way through doing research projects in community health or global health. So you don't have to be in a wet lab all 4 years of medical school if that's not what your passion is. And so I really think our medical school is about this tight-knit community that all believes in health equity and health justice, and is also committed to pushing medicine forward through the research that they're doing. And so I would say if those things are appealing to you and that's what you've spent some of your undergraduate years or even postgraduate years working on, then Pritzker may be a great place for you.
Yeah, that certainly sounds like a great benefit if you're in an urban area that you have that diversity in patient population. Another interesting thing that I've learned is in places where patients tend to, unfortunately, be neglected by the healthcare system, their disease processes end up being very severe, very medically or academically interesting. And so while it's an unfortunate consequence of sort of the inequalities in healthcare, it does provide for really great learning opportunities as well as a student.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, our dean for admissions is an emergency medicine physician, and she has students come and work with her on away rotations all the time. And they cannot believe kind of how complex our patients are and how much need there is in every aspect of their lives. And I think that it is really motivating. And I've talked with our alumni who have gone off to residency kind of across the country. And I've heard more than one of them say they just miss seeing the patients at UChicago and doing the research that we do there to hopefully alleviate some of these health disparities, social disparities, structural racism, all of those things that affect our patients and our community.
Yeah, of course, of course. Well, so I want to pivot now to another question. And this one is about kind of the two different routes it seems like medical students end up taking. Traditionally, it was straight through from college into medical school, but every year it seems to be that the average age of matriculation is getting older. So I'm curious how your school, well, actually this Facebook question, which is great, says, how does your school view non-traditional applicants? And I mean, there are all kinds of ages of extreme that I've seen. 35 is a little higher, but I've certainly seen older students in my classes. So how do your institutions view patients who took years between college and medical school? And I don't know, we can go with whoever is interested.
Sure, I can answer that. I mean, for one, we don't take age into account as a factor. I mean, we treat all of our applicants equally. And so we look at your application, your experiences, how you interviewed, and that is really what's important. And of course, the older you are, you probably have more experiences to share with us. In our med school for the last couple of years, only 15% of our class has been straight out of undergrad. So most of the individuals that have come to our medical school have taken some sort of alternate path. That could be 1 year, it could be 10 years, but they've had other experiences before coming to medical school.
Yeah, absolutely. I've met people with some really interesting experiences in between college and medical school. People who medicine's even their second career. They had a whole long career in something beforehand. And I think it makes for really interesting students who end up applying those previous careers to really interesting outlets in medicine. How about at your institutions, Ms. Sharp-Keller, Ms. Birdsong? I imagine similar kind of perspectives?
Yeah, absolutely. So in any given year, about 2/3 to 3/4 of our students will have time off before medical school. So it's actually somewhat rare that we're having students kind of come straight through. And because I agree with basically everything that Dr. Hongdele said, I will just touch on a different aspect of this kind of gap year question, which I think is especially notable given the pandemic that we've been in, which is that we know how challenging it has been to keep up with your pre-medical activities during this year. We know that your labs were shut down, that clinical volunteering activities were canceled, that many students faced financial strain during this time and couldn't do some of the activities that they would normally be doing. We get that. And so I think that one thing that will be very helpful is thinking about gap years as a way to get some of those experiences. If 1.5 or even 2 years of your undergraduate experiences have been interrupted, we're of course going to be flexible with how we look at students who are coming straight through, have had some of those disrupted experiences. But if you're looking at your medical school application and saying, I just am not sure about medicine, or I don't feel like I got enough research experience on my application, gap years can be a really amazing way to build out that application, because we all know how competitive this admissions process is. And so I think gap years might even become a little more common as people look at their undergraduate resumes and say, gosh, so much was yanked away from me during this awful year that we've all been through. And so I think that's really important to think about. And on a light note of that, I have met, again, 75% of our students who have taken time off. No matter what they've done during those years, I have never, ever heard a student regret taking time in between undergrad and medical school. No one ever wishes they would have started med school sooner. They're always excited that they, took that teaching job or did research or worked in a hospital or a clinic in those gap years. And so even if you're a little nervous about it, even if it's not your original plan for when you thought you would go to medical school, we know what planners you all are. I think gap years can be a really great thing. And whether that's, 1 or 2, or whether you're, like the question asker said, somebody entering medical school at 35, all of that is contributing to your understanding of medicine and your pathway to the physician that you're going to become. So we highly encourage it.
Yeah, and I want to echo a point of that, which is that I feel like in many ways pre-medical students are very type A. It's, you have everything planned and you want it to go the way. I was that way at one point. And I thought that the way was you just go straight through. And when I got to medical school, I had classmates who were in their late 30s, early 40s. It really is nice, I think, to take at least some time in between medical or college and medical school to learn more about yourself, get some interesting opportunities in, because you have plenty of time to practice medicine. There's not much rush. So very much enjoy that gap year or years. Ms. Birdsong, anything to add to that?
I wouldn't add a thing to what either of my colleagues said. I think they nailed it perfectly on the head.
Yeah, I think you guys did a very good comprehensive job with that question. So the next question I have is about the two types of medical schools that are out there. And so the two kind of types are osteopathic and allopathic. And I think many students have only heard of one or the other. They don't always know what the difference is between the two. So I'm curious if you guys could kind of explain for our audience sort of what the definitions or kind of what they mean, and maybe how their trainings might be similar or different. And I feel like, Ms. Birdsong, this might be a good question to start with you, since we have one from DO and two from MD. It'd be good to hear from you first.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been at KCU for almost 14 years, so I've been answering this question for quite some time, and feel like I have a good grasp of it. The easy answer for anyone that doesn't really know and never heard of osteopathic medicine or maybe allopathic medicine, there's two types of doctors in the U.S. Osteopathic medicine, DO, and allopathic medicine, MD. Both are licensed to prescribe and do any type of medicine. And the biggest difference, training is typically almost exactly the same, 4 years, residency after graduation, typically rotations anywhere between third and fourth years, sometimes the second. But I think osteopathic medicine is where it differs just a little bit. You actually get a little bit more training in the musculoskeletal system and how you can have an extra tool in your pocket and learn how to diagnose and treat. I think osteopathic medicine was founded on the whole person med care, and really digging into lifestyles, eating healthy, doing the right things to keep yourself healthy. But for the last 20 years, 30 years, that has not been a difference. All of the physicians out there know how important that is to both have those healthy eating habits or exercise habits that also play into your care, and those primary physicians being those ones that are really digging into that and knowing a little bit more about their patients.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll touch on something that you had mentioned, which is the fact that in osteopathic medicine, you develop some few extra tools in your pocket. And I'll say that on my rotations, I've had plenty of situations where the attending physician or the head honcho doc turns to one of the residents with a DO background and is like, hey, I've seen this maneuver done. Can you do this? Like, I have no idea. I didn't get that in my training, but can you do this for this patient? I think it really benefit them. So I think that there is certainly some interesting and cool benefits to that additional training that you can get in osteopathic medicine that people should be willing to explore. A lot of my friends are at DO schools and they have really loved them. And Ms. Sharp-Keller and Dr. Ruhongola, I guess the allopathic medicine is sort of the more well-known, I feel like, medical school, even though, again, these terms osteopathic and allopathic, people usually haven't heard of. But I guess anything that you would like to add on sort of similarities or differences between the two types of programs?
I'm happy to defer to Dr. Ruhongola as the actual allopathic trained physician here.
Well, I mean, I think that Ms. Birdsong described, what the basic differences. I think that as both fields view the, individual. I think probably maybe DA schools were maybe ahead of allopathic schools before in terms of this idea of holistic medicine and looking at the person as a whole. But I think that essentially that's very similar based on, my experience in the last 20 years. But and, at the end of the day, we go to the same residency programs, we practice alongside each other. And so I think that there are, questions of fit and where, if this is the right space for you to get your education in, as has been mentioned. And I think you can achieve whatever goals you have in either setting.
Absolutely. I think that's a great way to put that. The residents I work with come from allopathic and osteopathic medical backgrounds. Some of the best doctors I've seen each come from both sides. There's really not one that's much better than the other. So I think that people need to figure out what's right for them and pursue that journey accordingly. So the next question that we have lined up, and I'm not sure if it's in a banner, but it says, what would you tell yourself if you were an applicant this year? What sort of advice might you give yourself if you were applying to medical school? I think this is an interesting question because I don't even know what I would tell myself other than maybe relax a little bit. It'll all be all right. Anyone want to take a first stab at this question?
Sure, I'm happy to, and we get how stressful and nerve-wracking it is on your side. I'm not that many years removed from applying to grad school myself, and kind of remember that as well. I think the thing that I know now after doing this for, this is my 8th admission cycle at the medical school level that I'm going into, is that I understand kind of the initial mindset of thinking, okay, I just have to figure out where I'm going to get into medical school, what are my MCAT and GPA and what places am I competitive for and where is going to give me an interview and where is going to let me in, and just approaching it from that, anybody will take me as the medical school for me. I get that. But I think the more effective mindset is looking for schools, again, that align with your personal mission in medicine. And that's why it's great that you're here learning about 3 very different medical schools. Because when we're seeing these numbers of applications go up and up and up, the applications that seem to me, as I'm sitting there reading them throughout the year, are the ones that look like Pritzker students that say, I have worked in an urban underserved setting and cared for patients either at a free clinic that I volunteered at or in my work that I've done, or even in my volunteering, and I want to serve these patients. And I've also done research, and I'm really excited that there's protected time in this curriculum for me to keep developing new knowledge. Those are the applicants that look great to me, not just the people with the best GPAs or MCAT scores, but the ones who look like people who are going to come in and be really incredible Pritzker students and do all of the things that we look for, some of which we've talked about this evening. And so I think that fit aspect is really important. And I think a great way to go about that is kind of digging around on websites, seeing what a school emphasizes. We know at surface level, many schools look similar, but start looking at what neighborhood they're in, what kind of patients they serve. If you're interested in research, what kind of research homes are there on campus? Is it all clinical research, or do you want to do something in global health or even teaching and medical education? Do they have unique programs that suit what you want to accomplish in medicine? And the reason that I think that is so important is it just makes you a better applicant for those schools, right? Throwing spaghetti against a wall and applying to, 70 medical schools is not going to help if you're a bad fit for 40 of those medical schools. And so being thoughtful about who you are and what you want out of your career in medicine, hopefully you've taken some gap years to help figure that out, as we talked about, I think will really help you craft a school list of places that will hopefully be just as excited to read your application as you were putting it together when you thought, gosh, all of this just sounds like me.
I think that's a great point about being intentional about where you apply based off what fits your interests or experiences. Would you say the best place to go for information, like regarding schools, is like the school websites, or where's the best place for someone to learn about that?
The school websites, and there's also the MSAR, the AAMC has, which each school submits information about their typical applicant, their mission, what their general academic, sort of ranges are for who's been accepted. And so that would be a helpful site as well. Since I'm already talking, I'll just add that I know that a lot of people are discouraged because of the opportunities that, have been described, before, have been lost with COVID. But just remember that everybody's in the same boat. Nobody was able to get in to do shadowing or, different opportunities. Everyone who's applying this year is in the same boat in terms of the lost opportunities of the last year. And so I do think it's important to sit back and make sure that you're ready to apply, because the reason we ask you, or we expect individuals to do these things, is not because we're just trying to make you jump through hoops. You actually do learn and mature and get a better understanding about what makes you excited about going into medicine. Because once you get on that train, it's a long train that you're getting on. So we want you to do this to make sure that this is definitely what you want to do. And also, to make sure you're a good fit for whatever medical school you're applying to. The other, and one little thing, at least at our school, and I don't know about other schools, but it's not a good idea if you don't think you're ready to just say, hey, I'm just going to throw an application in because, just see what happens. Because, the next time you apply, we're looking at, well, we didn't accept you last year. So what have you done in the last year that has improved your application? So the bar is set slightly higher. So my recommendation is don't be discouraged because everyone's in the same boat. But also, if you're not ready, don't just apply for the heck of it to see what happens, because you may hurt yourself in the long run. And I say this from experience. I did not get into medical school the first year I applied. But, I'm sitting here today as a physician, practicing, doing research, head of our admissions committee. So just don't be discouraged.
I think that's awesome that you can share a story like that. And like you said, look where you are now. You're thriving and you're a doctor and you're a dean position in a medical school. So that's just phenomenal. I think that students need to realize that it's okay if they don't get it the first time. There's plenty of opportunities and they'll succeed. Ms. Birdsong, what would you tell yourself if you were a medical school applicant this year?
Take a deep breath. I think we said it right at the front. Take a deep breath. It'll all be okay. And I think one of the biggest things that I tell students all the time, and they are applicants and they don't believe me, but everybody I have met says the same thing on the admissions side. We're here to help. We want to help. That is our job. And so if you have questions, if you want to know more about our school or about the application process or your specific story, reach out, ask us. That is our job. And most of us, if not all of us, do it because we love it. And our job is to help.
Oh, can I say one more thing?
Yes,
Sorry. And the other thing is that I know a lot of people they go to undergrad and they come in their freshman year, their sophomore year. It's a big adjustment coming to the big university or the small university, and there are adjustments, and maybe you don't get that A you expected in biology or chemistry. But, I think that most medical schools, they look at your journey traveled. And so, we look at where you started and where you are now. So if you are able to, meet the requirements for medical school, and just because you have that one C that you got when you were a freshman or something like that, reach out to the schools you're interested in. People are willing to talk to you. They want to hear your story, and we want to hear your journey. So don't give up before you actually give yourself a chance.
Yeah. I think that's also so important. Both of those points are great. Well, so we are wrapping up. We are kind of at the end. It's already been almost an hour. So the last thing that I always like to do is just everyone to reflect on one point that maybe they heard, or maybe that this discussion kind of inspired. And I'm happy to go first. So I would say that if I were kind of reflecting on tonight, a big takeaway point is, looking at these admissions deans. When I was a pre-medical student applying to medical school, I had no idea what y'all's faces looks like. To me, it was just so scary thinking, what do the people behind the desk look like? What are they thinking? Are they just putting red stamps on my application with X's? But you guys are just so human and so friendly and have really interesting experiences and stories. And it all sounds like are interested and willing to help other students just by being here tonight. I mean, that's already just a testament to your missions. So I would really encourage applicants to realize that the admissions committees are human too, and they're people. So don't be afraid to show some of your humanity as well as you're applying to medical school. So that's my reflection. And I'll pass on to whoever wants to go next.
Oh, okay, I'll do it. I think I would, I'd say a little bit the same as you, Noah, but being that I'm the only DO school here, I would highly encourage everybody to, if you weren't familiar with it before, take a look in, dive in, and learn all that you can. You may look through and figure out, yeah, that's not my bag, that's not my game. I want to go the MD route, and please do it. But I think realizing what all options are out there and where those schools are and what they do may actually end up, aligning with people. Be it that you're applying to both MD and DO, that is perfectly fine. I think long ago that there might used to be some a little bit of confusion over that. Of if you were applying DO, we only wanted the students that were only applying DO, and that's not the case anymore on either side. So dig into it. ChooseDO.org. That's the website. Kind of like the AAMC and the MSAR. All of the same resources are there for all of the osteopathic schools. So definitely dig in, and you are welcome to contact me if you have any questions.
Yeah, thank you. That sounds like a phenomenal resources for students who are interested and want to explore all the options they have. And they should explore every option available. Anyone?
I'll just riff off of what you were saying, Noah, which was you were talking about when you pictured who was on the admissions committees and what they looked like and what they were doing. But let's focus on what they, who they are and what they look like. We have some representation here of maybe what somebody wouldn't expect to see in a physician or an admissions committee. We have women here. We have a person of color, and many people grow up not ever seeing anybody that looks like them in medicine. And just to share that, we are just a few people, but our schools and our admissions committees want students that come from different backgrounds, from different, lived experiences, being, even if nobody in your family's ever been in healthcare or even went to college, or, what your, immigration status is, your background in terms of race and ethnicity and sexual orientation. We need all of you in medicine because we take care of our communities. And in order to better take care of our communities and reduce health disparities, we need to have a diverse and engaged pipeline of individuals going into medicine. So I just wanted to reflect on what you said and add that additional detail.
Yeah, I think it's amazing. You're totally right. We have 3 women here, all deans of admission, and that was not intentional by any means on my part. The second thing that I'll add is that the AAMC publishes workforce statistics, demographics, sex, gender, etc., on how the physician workforce is changing over time. And so you can find that on their website, and it's really amazing to see the steps that the profession has made in terms of diversification. So moving in the right direction for certain. Then Ms. Sharp-Keller, anything to reflect on?
Yeah, so just 2 quick things actually based on what all of you have said, kind of on the note about having, 3 women panelists here tonight. Our Dean for Multicultural Affairs, who's a personal hero of mine, she basically leads the work of healthcare disparities and has embedded it in our curriculum. One of the pieces of advice that she gives to applicants on interview day is when you go and interview at a place, look at where the women are. Look at where the people of color are at a medical school. Are they in positions of authority and power? And are they going to be the ones responsible for shepherding you through medical school? And that's important, I think, for every student, no matter your gender, no matter your racial or ethnic background. You want a place that respects in its faculty and its staff the same things that they're looking for in its student body. And then the other thing kind of piggybacks off of that, and I'll cheat and use something that Noah, you said as well too earlier, just a passing remark, but as you're looking at medical schools, talk to the students, ask them your questions. We are in love with our medical schools. We love recruiting. We love teaching medical students, but also it's our job to work at them and to hopefully do that well. But I think the students will give you the clear lived experience of what their time is like. Do they feel supported? Are they happy? Do they have a good time in medical school? Are they thriving? Do they feel supported based on any sort of aspects of their identity that maybe are not as well represented in medicine? Those things are incredibly important. And we can tell you about our schools doing that, but it's not true unless the students are living it out. And so I would say, talk to the students, whether it's about the curriculum questions that you have, or whether it's about the programs at a school, or even just how they live their lives in medical school. I think that ultimately is the most important thing as you're going through this process, finding out who's been in your shoes before you and, what they have to say about it.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think that's so important to see what the current students, what their experiences have been like, because ultimately that's going to be you one day. And so it's good to sort of know what the people who've come before you, what their experiences were like. And so that is a wrap. Thank you, all three of you, so much for participating tonight. Ms. Sharp-Keller, Dr. Rahangale, and Ms. Birdsong. We really appreciate your participation and attendance. As we're kind of signing off, I just want to say thank you to Abdallah, who's been helping to organize the event and go through the questions. Thank you to Dr. Haval Kelly. He does so much great work in medicine. He provided the streaming platform for tonight. To all of our viewers, share this with your peers, your institutions. We really want medical students or medical school applicants to feel supported and to feel like they have trusted sources they can turn to, like these panelists. So thank you again, everyone, for participating, and have a great rest of your evening.